Because somebody just mentioned that to me, and it was very important that they understand that we do have a religion in America, and it's Vedic. India, huh?
Now you're talking.
India embraced it and became immortal. Vivekananda says India is immortal because its heart is in Vedism and in religion. And America, to become more immortal, has to embrace this. And then we too will become like India, and we'll have a deep relationship with India. But it's got to be, ours has to be very free and open. India is embedded in Hinduism. That's all right. That's okay. And as a consequence, it's built up an enormous amount of wisdom around these themes, these Vedic themes, within a cultural context. Our job is to maintain that integrity of the principles, but allow people to create from the whole panoply of human experiences and spiritual practices. There are no boundaries here. There are no boundaries. So, I mean, that's the beautiful part of it, is that we can unleash this, and it will. I mean, it'll do its own. Once people recognize just how universal this thing is, then it'll unleash enormous creativity here in the West. And America is the leader in the planet. It is. It's the way it is. And it's that way because of that Constitution. And the Constitution gave us a sense of freedom. And that's why people come from all over the world here, because of that Constitution. And the ability to create and get educated and be independent and free and break out of traps, cultural traps. So, I mean, we need this in order to maintain this integrity, or we're going to fall, we're going to lose it all. We're going to lose it all. Our Constitution will die. The protecting of that and all of this stuff has to be maintained. But it's only through a moral fabric, a social moral fabric, that we can do it. Otherwise, we're dead in the water.
So, Swami, I want to thank you so much for giving us the essence of Vedic spirituality and the substance of Vivekananda's teachings.
Yeah, I'll continue.
Like you said, it's very applicable to our situation here right now.
Yeah.
And I really felt kind of lost, but now that you shared what you shared this morning, I see light at the end of the tunnel of what we're going through in this country.
Yeah.
But the only concern that I have is, unfortunately, you mentioned the Constitution. Unfortunately, there's a misunderstanding of the Constitution in terms of the religious aspect. In other words, we have freedom of religion. There's no doubt about it. But the problem is, people misunderstand that and saying that the government cannot get involved in religion, which basically turns out to be they can't talk about morality. They cannot,
Well, they're super.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You see? Separation of church and state. Thank you. But people don't realize that the Constitution did not create separation of church and state. It created the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law establishing a religion. In other words, the state cannot impose any religion on the citizens.
Right.
That's it.
Well, that's it, and that's still there strong. I mean, that's a strong part.
Well, yes, of course. But what I'm saying, it's taking God and morality out of the marketplace, or in the schools. That they took away prayer, and it goes on and on and on and on.
There has to be.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it's this whole thing of interfaith. I've spoken about it many times. Yeah. Interfaith in this country today is good. It's very, very important. Yeah. Very important. But it's not real. It's not real. In other words, I've attended a lot of interfaith, and I love the people, and they're very sweet and all that. Yeah. But they all sit around smiling at one another.
Well, that's the start.
And they all love one another. And they all love one another, but they don't really love one another. They can't. And so I've told them, I said, listen, don't we all agree that our religion is the best? Yeah, they all admit, yes, my religion is the best. But this Vedic spirituality says every religion is the best. Go for it, but don't superimpose it. And as you're saying, the freedom of religion, we have to see it so endemic, so much a part of fabric of life, of reason, of the human condition, that it has nothing to do with institutions.
No.
It has nothing to do with that, so that it's not a threat. It empowers the Constitution.
Exactly.
Because once a person stands up morally in this country, it's always healthy. And as an individual, those are awesome qualities that Americans have. But now if it's validated through spirituality, we become a very, very, very solid civilization. But we don't have that yet. This is the one religion that can do it. It did it to India. It woke India up. And it went crazy. And India ever since then has been mindlessly caught up in religion. And it's healthy. And it's a very healthy thing. And it's immortal. It never goes away. But they're brilliant when they go apply themselves to other things, if they want to. But their heart and soul is in religion. And that's the way it should be here in America. But the thing is, we've got to show how, and I'll do it in the next lecture probably, how reasonableness is always moving in the direction of transcendence. See? The more reasonable you are, the closer you are to transcendence. Einstein, the man, became a philosopher. He became so abstract and universal that he sounds like he's Vedic in the way he approaches everything. So it all merges in that transcendent truth. Sociology, economics, politics. Politics has to be shown to be a consequence of both sides of the spectrum, liberal and conservative. And it's the play between the two. Right now, the conservatives are terrible. No, it's a necessary stage. That's all. Let's realign the country, and then it'll slip back into a liberal thing and back again and back again. It cycles. And it's healthy, and it's only in this country that we get to do this. See? You can't do this in any other country. They get frozen. So we want to preserve this wonderful capacity we have, and that is preserved through Vedism. But we have to teach. As one person was saying here, I never realized I was Vedic. And people don't realize nowadays this country is Vedic completely to its core. But it doesn't, Vivekananda gave us the spiritual content to the Vedic nature of our culture. Very important. I mean, I'm passionate about this. It's very selfish. I'm very selfish. Because I want to be surrounded by geniuses who inspire my spiritual practice, who are great artists, who are great speakers, who are great writers, poets, who are great in designing architectural environments. I want to be able to walk into temples and shrines and areas where my heart opens up totally. And every time I walk in there, I'm empowered. And some of you here are gifted in architecture and know how to do that. And if not here, it's some other place. But the point is, you all have tremendous gifts. And once you understand the Vedic theme, then it becomes the property of the country. And America is crying out for this. So I'm very outspoken. I'm very, very outspoken. No hidden agendas. We're still pushing Hinduism in the movement. It's good. It's good. I ain't against Hinduism. I love it. It's got brilliant ideas in it. But we're not Hindus in this country. We can't become Hindus. We can't do it. It's impossible. Our history is radically different. You can't get Germans to be other than Germans. You can't get Italians to be other. Wherever you come from, you're what you are. And that's healthy. So, but here in America, it isn't an issue of where you come from or the background. It's the principles and laws of human evolution and reason and being reasonable and putting in this Vedic model. It flies.
And freedom. It's about freedom.
Freedom. Total freedom. And a freedom that's not crazy and slips off into fanaticism, but a freedom that insists on staying centered with love. You see, the more free you become, you can't become freer through authoritarianism. Everybody wants to be free nowadays. I'm free, and I won't let you speak. And if you do, you're offending me. And they're very strong about that, right? No. It's okay for everybody to be free, but be strong. Be able to ingest and internalize the surrounding world, the arguments that are going on now in politics. There's nothing wrong with either side. Let's assess them, analyze them, see whether they're true or false, and then act on that. But with love. See, reason when it's based on love works. Yeah.
Just want to challenge you a little bit on that. No.
No, I love it.
Gently on
He's
that last point,
helpful.
because it seems to me that there's a presupposition of what you're saying about the pendulum and discussion and so forth, and that is the presupposition, I think, is that there has to be some common basis in, let's call it, truth, facts. And it seems to me that if you don't have some sort of agreement that truth matters and facts matter, science matters this week, that you really can't have a discussion, but at least you can't have a rational, intelligent discussion.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting that out as a proposition. I happen to believe it, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know.
You believe precisely what?
Well, I guess I'll try to be less wordy. I think that you can't have an intelligent conversation if there's no set of common beliefs or common commitment to finding out the truth. And if you're trying to have a discussion with people at one extreme or the other of any spectrum, whether it's political, since you raised politics,
that's a
or
big
religious
thing, yeah.
So, in light of that question, I'd like to add my question, because they are kind of together.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout the history of mankind, as Mark has also pointed out, that you look at politics always overrules the truth. I mean, isn't that?
No, not at all. I mean, he would understand and say, no, not because there are 4 quadrants to life, and there's always a political aspect or a social aspect to it. And there's always a religious aspect to it, to any age. So you always have a political aspect. You always have a social. You always have the individual upper right quadrant, which is the pragmatic everyday life of the individual. And then you have the interior of the individual. So you have a society, you have a culture, you have the individual outside, and the interior part of all of us. We talk as Americans here. We all understand this thing. That's a cultural phenomenon, and we're communicating together as a community. Now, Mark is bringing up the point of reason functioning in this area of the world today. It's impossible right now because America has abandoned all of its myths. We're drifting. The only myth that I've run across, and I was a professor who said this, and I liked it very much. The only myth that we have anymore is that of the myth of the vampires, and now it's the ghouls or the zombies.
The zombies?
And that's the only myth. That's an American myth, and we're the only ones that have it. And we're pushing it because we're looking around and seeing everybody is like a zombie. We're all wandering towards something or other that'll flesh that will feed us.
Good metaphor.
Yeah.
When Mark had said intelligent, how do you define an intelligent discourse, like you individually? Because intelligence can encompass a variety of perspectives and a variety of, you don't necessarily have to didactic experience, but you might be able to have a real world.
No, that's a profound question that would take a lot of discussion, but I'll just make a quick stab at it.
Sure.
I would say it's a discussion that's based on rationality, and that if you've studied logic, that there are certain rules for how you get from certain premises or assumptions to a conclusion.
Sure.
And there are certain, because they've happened so often throughout history, there are certain logical flaws, fallacies they're sometimes called, that are easily recognizable. I'll just give you one example.
Yeah, just don't understand how that...
One of the tricks that a political demagogue uses is, whether it's left or right, it makes no difference. She or he will be asked a question about A, and he or she will cleverly twist that around so she's talking about issue B.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what they call a logical fallacy. So what I'm saying is that unless you have some sort of agreement of commitment to truth and facts, and some sort of rules for rational discussion, I think people can wind up chasing their tail and they don't get anywhere.
But I think chasing their tail may net ultimate. I mean, I think it may be part of someone's process. You have to find their path, to find their truth.
Yeah,
I or you or I, who are very
What do you
intellectual.
define as facts?
Excuse me?
What do you define as facts?
That's another pretty profound question. I think I love this stuff, but I think we could get too far away from.
Yeah, it's based on reality. Facts are based on reality.
Something into the discussion, and if I understand it even remotely, Vedanta is saying is if you haven't experienced it yourself, it's not true for you.
I'm sorry.
So there's nothing really philosophical about it.
I didn't hear what you said.
What I said is, I think Vedanta is saying if you have not experienced it yourself, it's not true for you. Yeah. It's just the supposition. And
the concept.
You can dance on the head of that hymn if you want, but what's really meaningful is what you're experiencing yourself.
That's a question for Swami, not for me.
Well, everything is correct. I mean, it's right now we're in a period of challenge.
Yes.
We really don't know how to address this stuff, but it needs spiritual content. That's one thing. It needs spiritual content to it. And so we have to keep that as probably in all likelihood, the guiding principle in our reasoning processes. In and of itself, politics doesn't work. In and of itself, it's death. Right now we're in a death spiral with politics because we don't have that spiritual orientation to it. And so really, really, I think all of this can be resolved once we put the pivotal part on spirituality, that our culture is moving in the direction of more integrity, more self-sufficiency of the individual. Individualism, but an individualism drawing inspiration from the spiritual, which has never been done in history.
Yes, true.
See, never. That's an American phenomenon, individuality, Vedic, and then to empower that individuality motivate individuality and legitimize it through a spiritual ideal. That is profoundly, radically different than anything we've ever done before, the world has ever done. That's what Vivekananda gave us. So to take this, and once that is there, my experience has been, it gives you a generosity of spirit and a willingness to explore without falling into the political in and of itself. So that you don't jeopardize, you don't contaminate, you don't get lost in the physical and in the political in and of itself. You see it as a means to spiritual growth for the individual. And once you see it as spiritual growth for the individual, then that sort of begins to define the argument and the problem. In other words, we don't want to fall into a collective. We don't all agree on something, and the students are doing now, which I sort of disagree with, which are safe spaces. Yeah. There shouldn't be any safe spaces, but I understand their problems as young people. But what there has to be is an open, serious debate. Why? Because the challenge makes us grow. We have a formula in Vedanta called tamas, rajas, and sattva. You've heard of that?
Right.
Okay.
3 forces of nature?
The 3 forces of nature. Tamas is when we're inert and we don't want to change. And I'm not going to change. And nobody is going to change me. Right? And then there's the other one where and it's very much Hegelian, where you're challenged by life and you try to step out of it. So you want to change. You're willing to change. And you hear the opposite arguments. And if you're really genuinely open to change, because the present circumstances don't work, there will be a movement in consciousness and a new level of integration. And this is fundamentally Vedanta psychology, pure 101. There's a new evolution to consciousness. The person now comes back from this challenge and this overwhelming contradiction to their existing ideas, but now they've assimilated something else they never realized was there. And so now they're more balanced, and they see the other side a little more clearly, and they're a little more gifted and refined and a little more open to life around them. But it's all based on the spiritual principle of openness and evenness, and not throwing all of our eggs into the pot of politics. That will kill us. So I think it's really that. And then the human psyche will evolve because it's based on strength, as Vivekananda said. What is going to make you strong? If you're a fanatic and authoritarian, that's not going to make you strong. You need love. If you're a totalitarianist and you believe in the mass belief, everybody agrees on one thing, that's going to make you terribly weak too. That's tamas. So what you want is a balance between these two, authoritarianism and totalitarianism. The totalitarian issue is, let's all think alike. How dare you step outside of the norm?
Yeah.
And the other is authoritarianism. We will decide for you. You don't have to think. Or the one or few people. And it's a delicate thing because at the top, they're always the same. Whether you know, it's a Hitler or a Mussolini or a Stalin.
Yeah.
They're all the same. So it's a very delicate area. You don't want to go into totalitarianism, and that's out there today in America, and also authoritarianism that has lost a lot of its potential. But we don't want authoritarianism, but we want free speech and an open heart. And the principle of Vedanta, these three gunas, is sustaining the openness of your heart as you redefine life in better and wiser ways, so that there's more and more communication going on in society. So it's that. It's the three gunas. Yeah.
Swami, isn't it what you're saying today, that you have been actually saying that for a while, that America is more Vedic?
Yes.
It is actually, I agree. But in my opinion, isn't that the whole world is Vedic? Because all the philosophies of the whole world, the roots lie in Vedanta, whether it is Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Shintoism. To me, Vedanta is parents of Hinduism. To me, Vedanta is grandparents of Buddhism. To me, Vedanta is great-grandparents of Shintoism. So, why there is because America is only 250 years old, is not dominated by, fortunately, not dominated by any particular quote-unquote religion.
Right.
So that's why it seems as if it is Vedic, but to me, actually, Vedanta could be fourth generation Vedanta, like for America, the fourth generation philosophy.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing, and everybody does it, and I always did it too. You're turning Veda into a noun instead of a verb.
I see.
So once you make a verb out of it, Veda, insight, wisdom, knowledge, instead of Vedic, and then nobody knows what to do with it. What do you mean I'm Vedic? I'm not Vedic. But if you put it in as a verb, wisdom. Veda means wisdom, insight. America has universities and places of active where they're into Vedas, the Vedas of the modern world. If you put it or if you say they're libraries, then it's a noun, but it's a noun that people start to understand. But if you put it in a noun as, he's Vedic, who cares? Who cares? See, but if you put it as a verb, that person sees knowledge and wisdom and reasoning as the very foundation of his spiritual life, then heck, I'm Vedic too, if you can really start to prove that. So you have to keep it out of nouns into verbs. If you put it in a noun, then you're going to get, we do that with everything. We nounize everything, and it becomes very impersonal and very impractical. But always when you have a problem with anything, my experience has been turn it into a verb and it'll make sense. Knowledge. Who cares about knowledge? Vivekananda did this very often. And it really, he had to. He was a turn of the last century. So he made little mistakes here and there. So he talks about knowledge, and we want higher knowledge and lower knowledge. Well, you don't know what to do with that exactly. See? But if you say knowing, it's a verb. Higher knowing or lesser knowing, or expansive knowing or more contracted knowing. It strikes home right away.
Yeah.
You understand? Oh, of course. But once you make it a noun, you kill it. It becomes an object. Keep it as a verb, and it's something living inside of you. So, the problem often is that people run around making nouns into verbs into nouns. I'm a Vedic. I believe in knowledge, wisdom, knowingness, the openness of knowingness. This has to be said by many people and redefined until we all understand it, and it's a community understanding, and then it spreads like crazy.
It's like the word Christ, Swami.
Huh?
It's like the word Christ. So when you're speaking to a Christian and you use the word Christ as a verb, then it becomes a Vedanta conversation.
Right.
Yes, Christ-like.
Christ-like, all that beautiful stuff. And they can relate, and it's a great way to open up, the topic.
Oh yeah, and it speaks right to the heart, whatever it might be, Krishna or Christ or whatever speaks to your heart and keeps it open, and keeps you moving through the day, as you struggle with Maya. There's another word, it's a noun, Maya. Ma, to measure. We're running around measuring transcendence. We're caught up in measuring and defining transcendence through space and time. We don't want to measure transcendence through space and time, which is Maya. We want to come to life and the surrounding world with an open heart and not measure everything in light of our own filters, our individual filters, and screw it up. Yeah.
Swami, you're getting better and better. You've been talking about understanding Vedanta from a Western perspective, which is what Vivekananda talked about from 1893 on.
That's right.
He didn't come here to teach the Upanishads, he came here to teach Vedanta. And he came here to teach the Upanishads, not just Hinduism, excuse me, I had the other way around. And now you're getting better and better at it, because we're not talking so much about what not to be, we're talking about more what to be. And I truly, especially with the earlier conversation as I walked in, I do believe that the root for success for Vedanta is for just to get past that 100th monkey, to become the big tent that all sides in some political or any other kind of discussion can still embrace and be Vedanta and be on whatever side they want to be on, because we're not part of that discussion. We're part of a whole other discussion that transcends all of that.
Oh, exactly. That's why I talk about interfaith. I've attended lots of them, and God bless them, but they're all smiling like I say, and they're all saying we're the best,
Yeah.
But we go as Hindus. Now that's impossible. That's not Vedanta. So if you go there and say you are all legitimate, and we start talking in this vein, they'll sit there stunned and amazed and they're not going to be able to argue with you. See, Vedanta is interfaith. We should never, never, never go to interfaith communities. We are the interfaith movement of the planet today. We have no hidden agendas. We have no need or desire to convert anybody. All we do is introduce the truth. And as Vivekananda said, it has an irresistible ability to convince people. It just does it. They hear it and they can't get away from it once they hear it. It speaks right to the human psyche. So, I mean, it's something that will it will spread all over this country. Once we start really preaching it in the right way,
Mainstreaming it.
It'll mainstream. And once it gets mainstreamed, you can't stop it because it's so good. I mean, God, it's awesome. Remain a Christian. Keep your heart open to Jesus. Go for it. Go for it with full power. But know that you love Jesus because you are Jesus in the ultimate sense. In other words, your potentiality is like Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus is love, we are love.
And we know somehow that's how we resonate. How can you resonate to Jesus unless you have Jesus inside of you already? If you're a satanic, evil person at core, how in heaven's name are you going to resonate to Jesus? If you're fundamentally the opposite of him, some mysterious grace enters into us, and then we're suddenly, but that's again mysterious, you see, and suddenly now we have that divine spark. And then they get into theology and you get gaga there, see, you get gaga. So it's all very, very solid stuff. And if it enters mainstream, this country then will turn it around. A lot of people are going down the tubes now because there's no religion here anymore. And they're all going down the tubes because they don't have, and it needs everybody to contribute. I'm just a catalyst. It needs all of you. You each have an enormous contribution to make to this. And as a community, we all filter out, we start building, but that's not going to happen yet until it's turned over to Americans. You see, it won't do it. It's not going to do it until it's turned over to America. And it's not happened yet. Yeah.
You talk a lot about reasoning and the intellect, and I keep thinking that wouldn't the pinnacle of intellect be knowing the absolute truth? And how does the mind play a role into that? Because I feel like everything that's in here has a purpose, a greater purpose. And I'm thinking, also in the Gita it says the mind could be your best friend and it could also be your worst enemy. So if we say it's our best friend, shouldn't it also help us get there?
Well, ultimately it is our best friend, but circumstances beat the devil out of us until we shift and change and become more reasonable. Intellect, it's called buddhi in Vedanta, the determinative faculty, the determinative of our inner antakarana, the inner organ. And that inner organ, it's beautifully done in Vedanta, but that inner organ, the determinative faculty or the intellect or the buddhi, see, there's your three gunas. If you're stuck in something and you're determined, listen, a Christian, or let's say a person in the world, they will use their determinative faculty, their reasoning faculty, to justify spreading drugs all over the place. It's not that they're stupid. They may be very gifted, but their determinative faculty is, how can I get more money out of the spreading of drugs? That's a determinative faculty. So they haven't evolved yet. They're stuck in that. So determinative faculty works everywhere, all times. But if you read the Gita, there's much more to it than just the determinative faculty. It's assuming there is a divine reality, and then you make your determinations around that larger truth. And you determine your life and your behavior around that underlying truth. Now it's for the positive. But most people, and you go into the chakra system, most people are deeply embedded in old karma and in the lower chakras. And everybody is. It's not as if we're evil because of the lower chakras. Everybody has the same problems. But the point is, we want to transcend that little by little. And the mind, most people, the determinative faculty up here, don't think the mind is up here. That's just the determinative faculty in the brain. The mind is the whole nervous system. Because when you get angry, you're not getting angry up here. It's down here. When you go crazy, it's down here. When you desire things in the world powerfully, it's down here. So what happens is that has to be broken up through new determinations. Once a person has been beaten up many, many, many lifetimes, and they no longer want to do this world anymore, but they don't know how to turn out of it. They've been looking a little bit after life at Christianity or Krishna or whatever it may be. They've been looking at those things. Oh, yeah, but then they bury themselves. The determinative faculty and their level of evolution is further back, so they bury themselves in the world. So they're beaten up, and each time they come back to the world, we look a little more at Krishna. You know, in other words, you've had those experiences. You know how experiences grow in us and we get wiser. It comes with us in our lives when we take on new lifetimes. So we get wiser and wiser with each lifetime. And so that determinative faculty starts waking up in a new way, deeper and deeper. Jesus, sweet Jesus, I got to turn it. Suddenly you ran across a guy who tells you, Jesus has changed my life. Really? I don't want to do this anymore. You don't know why, but you don't like this world now too much. It's very dangerous out there. Now, you didn't do that former lifetimes. But then you were knifed, you were killed, God knows what happened, you went through all sorts of terrible things. I don't want to do this anymore. So there is that change shift in the mind. And the determinative faculty is saying, I want Jesus. And of course, you're a fanatic, but you need it. at least in this time in history, human history. In a Vedic religion, you can do that passionately without compromising your intellect. See? But when you're in a traditional religious environment, you compromise Jesus is the only way. And you become a fanatic. Now, if you're Vedic and you come into a place and you see Jesus there, as well as Taoism and other things, your heart will open up, but you're not going to become a fanatic. You're going to see that it's all legitimate, but your determinative faculty is very Vedic in that you're very open. Your wisdom, your way of deciding things is very inclusive because it's reasonable. So that determinative faculty is run by our reasonableness, how reasonable or unreasonable we are.
Swami, you mentioned Native American animism.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering how I assume you believe that could be approached somehow honestly or without pretension. Like, what would that look like? And this is a question to the room in general. Like, I assume that kind of animism is a healthy part of the spectrum of the religious life. And that's something that's been lost in a lot of the more so-called developed religions. So in a lot of those experiences that, someone in one of those animistic religions would have, we would now look on with like a Jungian framework or something like that and see it as psychological. But to really engage honestly with like Native American religions, it seemed it would be appropriative, like to try to have spirit animals and see like, magical creatures, which could be a very interesting personal experience. But just wondering how you view that as being how to approach that honestly without it becoming delusion and disrespectful kind of appropriation.
Hypocritical and all that.
Yeah.
And being pious and let's all love everybody again, and you fall into this delusional condition.
Or like, moving around with a rattle and thinking, because I'm an 8th Native American, I can start wearing feathers in my head and start calling down the eagles and, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But I'm very interested in those kind of experiences that they have. Like, I understand, like, in like a lot of Eastern religions or even in esoteric Christianity, like a deeper truth is like is not the kind of animistic spirit animal type vision quest type stuff. But I am particularly interested in those kind of visual experiences.
I am too.
Yeah.
One day I was it was Santa Fe, just outside of Santa Fe in New Mexico, and I attended one of these Native American events, and it was beautiful. See, they're all like, and you think, well, what's that all about? Yeah. So, I mean, that's the normal thing, but. And so then I went over to they had tables along the way and they were selling their wares and everything. And I said, I just attended the thing. And he says, the event, I just left that. And he said, they're just having fun. He was fooling me. He was trying to fool me. See, and I respect that. I respected that. You're not having fun. Don't tell me that. People aren't out there doing that in order to get a few extra dollars. This is their soul and heart.
Yeah.
Now, when you go into animism, India used it in spades, but they did one thing that we don't know how to do yet, and we will as Vedic, is energize it with that ultimate non-dual reality. See, there's nothing wrong with the Native American images. They're beautiful, as you say. You would love to participate. But and they know this more and more now. Vivekananda said one time, nobody worships images and stones and rocks. Nobody does that. They always worship the divine behind.
But my images of the Native American images aren't their images. That's the thing. It's like so I can find these Native American images beautiful, but those, even if I'm 70% Native American, I'm still grown up in this culture. So whatever I image of it, my image is an image of an image.
Well, absolutely. That's the creative process, and that's what we want in Vedic temples. Are all these new creations still honoring the Vedic, the Native American animism, because that's where you got your source. So it'd be at a Native American shrine area, and you might amplify and deepen and make that even more profound in light of this underlying spiritual reality. But it's there already in the native thing, and they're doing that. They're not sitting around worshiping eagles. They're idiots or something. Yeah. They're seeing the flight of the human soul, and they're doing it that way. And that was Vivekananda. And it's the nature of the human mind to soar because we're innately perfect.
Do you see the transcendentalists doing that to any degree, like Thoreau? or Whitman, or do you see them?
Oh yeah, they were
participating
doing
in
it.
that somehow?
Participating in that?
In Native American animism.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you could find it in them, yes, absolutely. Of course, they were the transcendentalists. So I mean, they were doing. It's just that now we can articulate it more. The one thing is we can't believe in our myths. We can't turn to those animistic images and appeal to them in a devotional way, expecting you can. And you may get results because in India they've turned their animistic images into living deities. It's in the collective unconscious, so that when you turn to Hanuman is really there, not because necessarily there was ever a monkey god that was illumined, because we never have seen that. We know of no monkeys that are illumined. But it's in the collective unconscious of India, so that when you worship Hanuman, he's for real. See, because it's in the Ramakrishna would go around from town, city to city, village to village, and he would have experiences of different deities. And it was just a localized version of the Divine Mother, and he would see the value that she had for that community. So he'd fall into a samadhi. When he did with Christianity, he actually entered into a Catholic church someplace in Europe. In other words, he absorbed the whole cultural thing. He cries out to the Divine Mother, "Mother, what are you doing to me? My culture is shifting. I'm suddenly becoming a Christian, a Catholic in medieval Europe or at the time. What's going on? I'm going insane." But then he realized the beauty of Christ in that experience. He had the courage to do that. And on the other side, he became a proponent of all these religions. So I mean, you could do that. We could in mass worship the eagle, and collectively it would probably take on a force. And maybe some Native Americans do that, and it is a force, and we could find that, and you could participate on that, and maybe have a vision of the eagle in a way that's edifying and uplifting. But you can also use it as an image, see, and then build on those. So the point is not to discard it, but to see the beauty of Indian animism and the wide range of images it has to offer us: the buffalo, the fox, the whatever, the and whatever. So I mean, and to get the Native Americans to join in, because they're very Vedic. The Sioux are very Vedic. An underlying divinity. They talk about Maya. They have their own words for Maya. Yeah. They have the labyrinth. They have, and also the Pueblo and this whole of the little dolls. This cool stuff. Kachinas. This is cool stuff. We're not to deny this. We're to embrace it and honor them. If you want to. And if he has written a bunch of books on it. He's totally Western, and yet he has this inclination because in some form of life, obviously, he was Native American. We all come out of old samskaras too. So there are no boundaries here, just the honesty, integrity of the principles of Vedanta, and then use whatever it does you want to embellish on that. Yeah. It's good stuff. Vedic is awesome because it does honor the whole thing and empowers all of us, and gives us a sense of inner strength on our own terms. See? And that's very, 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 very precious. So I don't know if there's anything much more. There's always something to say, but next time I come, we'll be talking about somebody. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it sounds like you said that a lot of people found ways to open their hearts through their own religions and images. But for those who don't, are there practical, universal ways of doing that? Or are there ways to find out which images or practices can help you open your own heart?
Either one. I mean, let's say you had a temple with all sorts of images in there. Well designed, so that you can go from shrine to shrine. You may walk over to one shrine and your heart opens. Oh, I love this. Oh, God, I love this. You sit down and you want to just sit there and stare at the shrine and all the different ornaments that are there and how it's been designed by a very creative artist. Or if you know the principles of opening of the heart, you can start doing these ideas of pranayama, breathing, and opening your heart through different breathing exercises and through mantra meditations, and there are all sorts of devices. The whole aim of spiritual practice is to get you to see beyond cause and effect. We're all caught up deeply, likes and dislikes, cause and effect. And we're not in that transcendent middle state that allows us to move through life getting beyond our autonomic nervous system and staying in the central nervous system. We're caught up in the autonomic nervous system. So you could do it through breathing exercises and meditation. You could do it through devotional practices and love of the nature worship with a new idea of the transcendent being there. There are so many ways you could find your own way. And many people will write that in this movement, and people will share their ideas. And you'll read a book by somebody in New York or someplace in Seattle. Or they've written a book, and they're Vedic up there, and they're practicing. They're Vedic practitioners, and I always have problems saying Vedic because it always becomes a noun, and it screws everybody's mind up. Huh?
Say Vedanta.
Well, Vedanta, the end of knowing. But even that becomes a noun. It's very, anyway, once you understand it, you can do it. And it becomes easy for everybody. Because it ends up a noun too. We nounize it, instead of verbize it. So keep it a verb, or an adjective. So yeah, if you haven't found your heart opens up. Your heart opens up. Everybody's heart opens up, and you can be outside walking around in the sunshine, and suddenly there's a sweetness that comes into your life. That occurs here. Never occurs down in the lower chakras. It always occurs here. And if you can nurture that, nurture it, then it starts going down in there. And then, as I love to say, heavenly sunshine, filling my soul with glory divine. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Jesus is mine. It's going down in there. Ooh, there's peace in my soul. A lot of soul songs in Christianity, India too. But a lot of soul songs, how people's souls have been opened and changed, transfigured. Solar plexus, that's all that is. Yeah.
Swami, just few minutes ago you have said something very scientific, and that is controlling your nervous system, meditation or some process.
Yeah.
May I request a lecture on that?
Pranayama, huh?
She's a scientist, that's not fair.
Well, I could introduce it into the lectures. I could make it a part of a lecture. I could give a whole talk on it. It means I'd have to create it, and I'm getting lazy now. I just give old lectures.
Because at the end of the day, what matters is going from noun to verb, what you said.
From
and
what?
I'm requesting you the process of doing that. Take me from noun to verb.
From now to
verb.
Oh, noun to verbs, yeah.
I have to control my nervous system.
That's it. Well, of course, pranayama.
Yeah.
Centering. Being quiet. Let silence be in your life. And know that behind all these names and forms, there's one reality. It's there. It's your ability to do it. There have to be poets here to write this book. This book. Breathing and keeping the heart open, and eventually the light comes. It dawns on you one day as you continue to struggle and you continue to fail. And one day your failures turn into success. And so it's just a community, a sangha. I'm talking here about a sangha of brothers and sisters who are committed to the truth in this Vedic way. See? so that we can speak with open hearts and we can turn to any image we so choose. And everybody agrees and says, wow, does that help you? How does it help you? Well, let me try, whatever. And there are living beings there. In India, like I say, they've done it with Ganesh. One time I had a dream of Ganesh. Either it was personal, but I don't think so. I would never have thought of an elephant god. See? I don't think I would have ever done that. But he appeared to me in a dream. So I thought, oh, this is cool. It's very cool. So it's there. It's there. India did it, and we can create all, I don't know, we can create all sorts of things with collective passion. See? So anyway, I think we all understand what we're talking about here. And we can beat it to death, but next time I'll come. But really what I want is a Sangha. What I'm really crying for here is the Americans taking this over and really Vedicizing America. That's really what I want. Because like I say, right now we're stuck as a movement. We're not really moving out. Nobody in the country, we're not getting young people in our monasteries. They're going to Catholicism, they're going to Buddhism, they're going to other isms, they're joining yoga groups. They're not coming here. The moment you make this Vedic, this place will burst open. You won't be able to keep the people away from here. They won't leave this place. They'll just be coming around all the time. And then when it gets so big, you just turn it over to your architects and your artists and just build temples everywhere and let them flourish, and people will be spokesmen. This is vacant on. All you have to do is draw from the man. And you don't even have to quote from him. I think he's our prophet. I think he's the prophet of America, the spiritual father of America. Without him, we couldn't do this. And Ramakrishna is the incarnation of the age, but he's got to be done by the people of the world today in a very versatile way. You can't put him in Hinduism. You can't contain him in Hinduism. He's much bigger. And so that has to all be done, and it has to be done by the world. So it's just waiting in the wings, and that's really what I'm crying for, because we don't have a Sangha. I go back, and I'm all alone there in Hollywood, and I could see this thing, and you're all excited about it, because it speaks to your souls, and you could all embody it passionately, like they did with early Christianity. Suddenly monasteries and cathedrals and churches, and then here in America, the whole thing burst open. In India, they have temples all over the place. This is an act of tremendous enthusiasm by a culture that's suddenly passionately interested in the spiritual. We go crazy for it. Once the heart opens up, people go crazy for this. Nuts. Because there is your avenue out of hell.
Without drugs.
Huh?
Without drugs.
Without drugs. So, I mean, I'm really passionate about spreading this. I'm unorthodox. I'm very orthodox, actually.
Yeah.
But I seem unorthodox. And I really speak to America. And I'm really passionate about this. And I'm very dangerous to the existing status quo. Very dangerous to it. But I can't help myself. This is the truth. And it's so true that you just have to speak about it. And you're all maniacs. Once you get a hold of this, you're all very clear and bright and capable. And once you folks get, and you come together as a Sangha, this thing will burst out into the society. We're minuscule, but it'll catch on like fire. If it's said right. Make them verbs. Make it all verbs, and it'll fly. You know. And so with that,
Thank you, Swami.
thank you.